Happy New Year, and I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas. I know I certainly did. And while I took a break over the last few weeks to rest and recharge with my family, there is plenty to talk about, so let's get to it. Unfortunately, the topic for discussion today is as dreary and depressing as a typical January, and it's a question I find myself asking more and more. What is wrong with society? Why are we cultivating such a selfish, greedy society with zero empathy past our own noses? Now, of course, not everyone is like that, but let's be real here. It's unfortunately true for many. So what has prompted me to ask this question more and more lately? Well, quite a lot of things, but there was one story in particular over the past couple of weeks that threw this heartless society we are mired in into sharp relief. And that is the story of Dublin City Council's proposed new bylaws to restrict and ultimately ban on-street soup kitchens, which was prompted by the findings of Simon Harris's task force for Dublin City Centre. This is where we are in Ireland right now, one of the supposedly richest countries in the world, with mind-boggling surpluses which could actually help a hell of a lot of people, deciding that the best way to deal with those homeless and deprived in our society is to cut off services and sweep them out of sight and out of mind. Now, before I get into the ins and outs of this issue, because there is much to talk about, I have to admit that while this story angered me greatly, it also caused me to pause and reflect, and for a brief moment it made me question my resolve. If you followed my channel at all, you will know that a story like this is exactly the type of story that I would talk about. It highlights the inequality we see across our society in a supposedly wealthy country, and it highlights the failures of our government to address those inequalities. This sort of story angers me no end and goes against my morals and beliefs of what society should look like. And yet, for a brief moment, I wondered why I should bother. And why? Well, that's simple. When you look at this story with the backdrop of the election results and government formation, it's easy to become demoralised and wonder what's the point when we have just voted for more of the same. People are clearly A-OK with homelessness. People are okay with what Fianna Fáil and Gael have built, namely a society that punishes the poor, ignores those who need help, and rewards only the wealthy. We voted for this, but then I gave my head a wobble and snapped out of it. Yes, it is very demoralising to see that the I'm Alright Jack Brigade are happy enough and don't care unless it happens to them. Yes, it's hard to stomach the misplaced faux empathy for brownie points that we so often see, while there is genuine suffering that deserves the attention more. Yes, it's incredibly frustrating to see the clown show of government formation where everything you'd expect to happen is happening. We've got the continued farce of rotating Taoiseach. We've got Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael doing business with Michael Lowry, the man who the Moriarty Tribunal labelled as profoundly corrupt, with a file finally being sent to the DPP. We've got independents abandoning their supposed beliefs and rowing in behind whatever gets them on the gravy train. For example, Michael Healy-Rae backing FFG on more carbon taxes. We've got extra jobs created just to share that taxpayer-funded gravy train around. We've got talk of rushing through the legislation at the first opportunity to allow for said jobs and paychecks, despite the fact that it's somehow going to take them 5 years to do right by carers and abolish the means test. 5 years to do something that benefits ordinary people, but the blink of an eye for something that benefits themselves. We've got independents who have agreed a programme for government, but who now want to sit on opposition benches so they can create the pantomime of criticising government despite agreeing to support them, all while taking speaking time away from the actual opposition. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, they aren't half fucking greedy, are they? If they go ahead with that, then sure every backbencher from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael who didn't get a cushy role may as well do the same, because democratic process and decorum, right? And people have been telling me for a long time that we should all vote only independent. I seriously hope those people are big enough to realise their folly and stop with that nonsense now. As I've said all along, there are far too many independents in name only. Worse still is that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael don't even have to pretend to care about the optics of anything they do anymore. By being voted back in despite everything, they have, in effect, been granted a free pass by the electorate to do whatever the they like, because they know that no matter how bad they up, there's enough gullible and not so gullible May Feiners out there who'll vote them back in. And on it goes. It's enough to make you sick. So it would be very easy for me to throw in the towel and slip into a false, blissful ignorance of the carry-on of our government. But as I said, I snapped out of it. Why? Because while I may not be sure of a lot of things in life, I am very sure that this cold, heartless, greedy version of Ireland is wrong. I am sure that the path we are on is not the right path. And I'm sure that I'm not alone in thinking this way. I am very sure that sweeping homeless people out of sight and out of mind is not the right path. So back to the soup kitchens. You know what? I do actually agree that indoor soup kitchens would be better. They would offer more privacy and dignity to those who need to use them. But it's not really about their dignity, is it? The task force and the Dublin City Council, led by a coalition of councillors from Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour and the Greens, you know, the four parties whose policies have led us to this point, they can all try all they want to frame it as a health and safety issue, a dignity and privacy issue. But when the only solution is to ban the soup kitchens outright, well, it really shows up their true intentions, doesn't it? Namely, that they simply want to improve the city centre's image, because these on-street soup kitchens degrade the public realm. No, you know what degrades the public realm? Needing any soup kitchens at all. 15,000 homeless in a ridiculously wealthy country. That degrades the public realm. Lying about and massaging the true homeless figures, that degrades the public realm. Food poverty in a wealthy country such as Ireland, that degrades the public realm. But should we expect any less from our ruling class? Sure, it was only a couple of years ago that then Taoiseach Leo Varadkar disputed the findings from a survey carried out by Bernardo's that said in 2022, 1 in 10 families had used food banks. Are we going to pretend that that figure has gone down in the years since, when grocery prices have continued to rise, alongside every other increase in the cost of simply living? Yeah, right. Dublin City Council and Simon's task force can dress this up any way they want, but it's clear as day that they simply want to hide the problem. If they were serious about helping these people, they would be offering alternative sites and accommodations for the soup kitchens to safely run out of, with increased Garda patrols to deter antisocial behaviour. But no, they'll ban them first without any alternatives in place. And as for Garda patrols, they'd need some Gardaí in the first place, wouldn't they? Hell, if they were truly serious, they'd be addressing the root cause of the homeless crisis. They'd be addressing the housing crisis. And while this sort of callousness is expected from the parties who brought us to this point in the first place, what really makes me despair is A, the fact that we as a nation voted for this knowing what they are like, and B, the comments on the likes of Twitter, Reddit and the articles about the soup kitchens. Yes, there are plenty who are just as disgusted as I am, but there were also plenty who were happy with the move because, God forbid, the results of years of ever-increasing homelessness and deprivation be on show in our nation's capital for all to see. We can't be seeing the peasants after all, they must be ignored, for surely it is their own fault that they are in that situation in the first place. So long as we have people who put optics above actual people, then society will continue to be a heartless, cold and callous husk of what it should be. And for as long as that continues, I will continue to speak out against it. The election results may have shown that the haves made their voices known more than the have-nots, but it doesn't have to be this way. We need to find our social conscience and our empathy. Until we do, greed and cruel apathy is all we'll have. So what do you think? Are you okay with our society? Are you happy with the lack of real empathy for those who deserve it? What are your thoughts on the clown show that is our government formation? Do you think the independents, who are already positioning themselves as the mudguards, will fall just like the Greens and Labour before them? If you voted for any of these independents, are you happy with the outcome? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.